In 1998, Outkast released a song called Rosa Parks, named after the iconic civil rights campaigner. While the song was intended to be complimentary, an elderly Rosa Parks was reportedly offended and was taking legal action against them. The lawsuit marks one of the most bizarre incidents in hip-hop history, with a number of strange twists and turns. The song Rosa Parks was the second single off Outkast's third studio album, Aquemini. Their previous albums, Southern Playalistic Cadillac Music and ATLians, were incredibly well received, and the duo were seen as the early flag bearers for Southern hip-hop and the city of Atlanta. A favorable review from Rolling Stone magazine saw the song Rosa Parks as something that encapsulated their sound. The bluesy guitar licks and folksy harmonies of Rosa Parks announce Outkast's distinctive style of Southern boogie. The groove goes into overdrive during a clapping, foot-stopping breakdown, funkified by a fierce harmonica as the kick drum pounds incessantly. The song is not really about Rosa Parks herself, but the chorus does make reference to her historic refusal to sit at the back of the bus in Montgomery, Alabama, in 1955. This protest inspired the Montgomery bus boycott led by a young pastor named Martin Luther King Jr. The lyrics in the chorus go, "Aha, hush that fuss, everybody move to the back of the bus. Do you want to bump and slump with us? We the type of people make the club get crunk." Ultimately, the song had little or nothing to do with Rosa Parks. However, in March of 1999, it turned out that Rosa Parks herself didn't see it that way. In fact, she was offended by the unauthorized use of her name. At 86 years of age, Rosa Parks felt exploited and had hired an attorney to halt the sale of the record. Her attorney, Richard Manson, said, "Outkast did not confer with Mrs. Parks about using her name or likeness in the song in question, and she views this as the same kind of conduct that she faced 40 years ago, an abuse of people." Her lawyer references the rights of publicity, which means that you cannot just use someone's name and image for commercial gain. On March 31st, Millennium Entertainment Group, who represented Parks, filed a lawsuit for $25,000 in damages and for Outkast to remove her name from all their products. Crucially, Rosa Parks was suing LaFace Records and not necessarily Outkast themselves. Speaking also on her behalf was Gregory J. Reed, an attorney who has also written 2 books about Rosa Parks, saying, "You have her name associated with lyrics that contain vulgarity and profanity that she does not appreciate." And there is some substance to what Reed said. In Big Boy's verse, he raps about their various exploits with women, and there are lyrics that maybe shouldn't be in a song named after a highly respected figure and deeply religious woman. According to Reed, the lyrics were really abusive towards women. The music is fine, but sometimes they get carried away with the lyrics. As you can imagine, this put Outkast in a very difficult situation. Nobody wants to be in a beef with Rosa Parks, never mind an 86-year-old Rosa Parks. They released a statement that said, "Rosa Parks has inspired our music and our lives since we were children. The opportunity to use our music to help educate young people about the heroes in the African American community is one of the responsibilities we feel we have as music artists. It wasn't, nor ever has been, our intention to defame a woman who we consider a role model and a civil rights pioneer. We hope to be able to work out this situation amicably." Outkast's lawyer, Conrad Millett, then said something interesting and implied that it was people around Rosa Parks who had convinced her it was offensive, reading, "Outkast have conveyed to me their deep dismay that representatives of Mrs. Parks have somehow convinced her that their release of the track Rosa Parks has dishonored her and that Outkast has commercially exploited her name." And Conrad Millett wasn't just some random attorney either. He personally knew Rosa Parks, who was a colleague of his while working for Congressman John Conyers Jr., who founded the Congressional Black Caucus. And he said, "Mrs. Parks and I were on the congressman's staff at the same time. I can assure you that I would not have taken this case unless I was sure that Millennium's position on this issue was dead wrong." His obvious defense was that Outkast were protected by the First Amendment and the case was dismissed. However, Rosa Parks' team had plans to appeal this verdict. In the year 2000, the same year that Outkast released their album Stankonia, it was revealed that Rosa Parks' appeal would be led by Johnny Cochran. Cochran is best known for the defense and criminal acquittal of O.J. Simpson, and by all accounts, a very good attorney. One of the strangest accusations leveled against Outkast is that they cost Rosa Parks a lot of money. In 1995, a gospel album called A Tribute to Rosa Parks was released and contained songs by Yolanda Adams, Sounds of Blackness, and Shirley Caesar. It sold 1 million copies, but Parks' lawyers said it would have sold a lot more had her name not featured on the title of an Outkast song. Eric Parker, then music editor at the hip-hop magazine Vibe, told the Washington Post, "I don't see any way that could be possible. I don't think anybody who was hoping to buy her record bought this one by accident. This one gets sold in the hip-hop section, and the other one's in gospel. It doesn't seem to make much sense at all. It's a clever title, being that the hook is "Everybody Moved to the Back of the Bus," but it didn't contribute to the overall record sales. If anything, it was a clever nod to Rosa Parks. It would have sold just as well no matter what they titled it. In 2003, Outkast released their 5th studio album, Speakerboxxx: The Love Below, and songs like Hey Ya and Roses cemented Outkast into the highest levels of mainstream. And crucially, they now had a lot more money than they did in 1998. On a 2004 verse for Sleepy Brown's song I Can't Wait, Andre rapped, "I'm in the southern states, you know, where all the pimps be, dressing all boogie and carrying ugly cups. And yes, you're getting booed if your stuff don't not get down, and yes, you're getting sued by women who didn't get up out their seats on the bus. And feet, shoot and rust, and beating is a must, and we shouldn't lust, but we do." And by now, you're probably wondering why I haven't used any quotes from Rosa Parks about this song. Well, that's because there aren't any. This silence added to the speculation that Rosa Parks didn't care or wasn't even paying attention to know about this song, and that it was the people around her who were calling the shots. Also that year, a judge asked Detroit Mayor Dennis Archer to serve as a guardian to Rosa Parks, and this was amid questions over whether those representing the civil rights pioneer are doing an adequate job. Quote, "While the lawsuit was initially all about protecting Parks' legacy, this lawsuit was now asking for a monumental figure in damages. This figure, according to the New York Times, was $5 billion. LaFace Records was a subsidiary of Sony, so this figure was outrageous, but still technically something their opponents had their capacity to pay out. And curiously, Gregory Reed was fined $1,000 for failing to produce documents related to the Outkast lawsuit. The Detroit Free Press requested that Rosa Parks' medical records be made public, and this would reveal whether she was capable of ordering legal lawsuits. It was public knowledge by then that she had dementia, but it wasn't clear when she was officially diagnosed. Her medical records revealed that she had dementia since 2002, so people were clearly acting on her behalf at least since that date. More importantly, she wasn't diagnosed prior to when the first lawsuit was filed, as this would have definitely concluded that she wasn't in any way involved. Nonetheless, asking for $5 billion was completely out of character. A member of Rosa Parks' family released very revealing comments. Rhea McCauley, Rosa Parks' niece, said, "I'm not a doctor, but I know, dementia or not, my auntie would never, ever go to this length to hurt some young artist trying to make it in the world. As a family, our fear is that during her last days, Auntie Rosa will be surrounded by strangers trying to make money off of her name." Outkast had unknowingly added further fuel to the flames of an inheritance dispute involving Rosa Parks. Parks didn't have any children of her own, and in 1998, the very year Outkast released a song about her, Rosa wrote her will. Rosa Parks wasn't a very wealthy woman and lived very modestly, but her position as a historical figure was bound to bring in money in later years through royalties. When she passed away, all of her possessions would essentially become historical artifacts and memorabilia. In her will, she allocated 10% of her estate to her nieces and nephews and a 90% stake to her good friend Elaine Steele. Steele was a close personal friend of Rosa Parks since the 60s, and towards her latter years, Steele became her primary caregiver. In 1987, Parks and Steele co-founded the Rosa and Raymond Parks Institute, named after her and her late husband. So for Parks, she seemed like the perfect candidate to continue her legacy after her death, much to the dismay of some of her extended family members. Thankfully, though, in 2005, a settlement was reached. The song Rosa Parks would still be available, but the record company promised to sponsor projects educating young people about Rosa Parks' life. Later that year, Rosa Parks sadly passed away, and 2005 also marked the 50th anniversary of when Rosa Parks sat down on a bus in Montgomery, Alabama. In the wake of her passing, Reverend Jesse Jackson said, "We rejoice in her legacy, which will never die. In many ways, history is marked as before and after Rosa Parks. She sat down in that order, we all might stand up, and the walls of segregation came down. Paradoxically, her imprisonment opened the doors to our long journey to freedom." At the time, there were worries that this lawsuit might blemish her legacy, but thankfully, that hasn't been the case, as most people don't even really know that this ever happened. Make sure to subscribe for more.